All right, I think now we're recording. So again, and because this is important, everybody always says, who's our speaker? I'll just say once again, we're very pleased to have Dr. Williamson here tonight. She's professor and chair of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Meharry Medical College. She is a practicing psychiatrist specializing in child and adolescent psychiatry. I'm going to start off with a few questions, 4 questions, and then we will open it up to the floor and anyone else can ask questions as well. So welcome, Dr. Williamson.
I am so glad to be here. Thank you for asking me.
So glad to have you. And thanks to Van Pinnock, known here as Theodora, for suggesting that we talk to you today.
Okay. Yes.
Thanks, Van. So most of us aren't feeling 100% normal these days. We know what's going on, but this is new territory for all of us. Can you help us understand what's going on psychologically in our minds, what's going on here?
Sure. So that's really a great question, because I think we think a lot about COVID-19 and the coronavirus, but stress accumulates. And a lot of times when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, we're thinking about what's happening right now and not what's been building up. So all of us have everyday stresses with just the hustle and bustle of life, whether it's bills or keeping up with children, either young children or adult children or grandchildren, just the everyday routines. So we have all of those stressors. Then there are others of us that have some additional stressors that may date back to our family of origin. It could be anything from trauma to abuse. It could even be microaggressions, trying to deal with racism. There's a group of things what we call adverse childhood experiences. So having somebody in your family with a chronic mental illness, having to deal with somebody who had been in prison, substance abuse. So those are additional stressors that individuals might experience. Then we might add on some medical problems, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, that add another layer of stress to our bodies, which, believe it or not, our brain is connected to the rest of our body, right? But when you have to take off from work, go to the doctor, get different appointments, that's another layer of stressor. Then, of course, here in our area, we had the stressor back in March of the tornado. And before we could really adjust and recover from that, here comes the wave of COVID-19. With that, not only are we adjusting to different work schedules and life schedules, but children in school are now at home, and whether that's young children or older children who've been away living independently, now having to come back home and adjust to family routines, people being in tight spaces, and then just not being able to leave and go and come every day. So all of that is a lot to absorb and a lot to think through. And if we don't stop and really think about all these things intentionally and consciously, it can just overwhelm us. So it's just good to remember that things that in our environment affect our mind and our emotions, our health affects our mind and our emotions, and our interaction with other people, whether it's school or work, or just even a change from your retirement routine, can affect your mind and emotions.
So it sounds like it's okay that we're not feeling 100%.
It is okay. And it is actually a good thing to realize that we're not feeling 100%. Because a lot of times if we just plow through and ignore all of these things and act like everything's going okay, there's going to come a point where our body shuts down and says, okay, I've had enough. And that can happen either through emotional outbursts, isolation, anxiety, withdrawing, or just actually physical problems. Tension can cause headaches, stomach aches, aggravate ulcers, asthma. So all of that, it's important to just be aware that, okay, I'm not feeling my usual self, but that's because my usual routine has been disrupted.
So I think we all truly desire, I think, to feel grounded or sane during a crisis. Is there any, I think you've given us some hints, but can you sort of flesh out a little bit more what we can do to help our neighbors and ourselves to feel better?
Sure. So there's a balance. And right now our balance is more on the negative. But we can do some things to change the balance to the positive. While we can't change everybody's activities in the world, we can make sure that when we're at home, we're doing our best to eat right. So not just gobble down all these snack comfort foods, but eat healthy portions of fruits and vegetables, drinking water. And it seems so simple, but that's the food our machine and our brain operates, and it needs to operate. Our routines are different, and I think it's very important to figure out a reasonable change of routine. So the time that you get up and go to bed when you used to go to work or leave house to go to work may be different. And even if you're working at home full time, you may need to take some breaks because you're not interacting with your coworkers in the same way that you were at your work routine. Also, if you have individuals at your home, other people working from home, or children at home with school schedules, taking breaks to interact with them. I think it's also important to make sure we have regular sleep routines. So sleep is a restorative body state. Making sure that you're having a regular time that you go to bed and get up in the morning. And then along with those other helpful things, physical activity is very important. So I won't say exercise because sometimes people avoid that, but just doing some deep knee bends, stretches, walking around the house. Even as we're safe at home, we can go outside in our yard and get some sunshine and fresh air. And that sunshine really actually helps boost our mood. And then just thinking positive thoughts and being grateful for the status that we're in can also go a long way. If we just focus on the negative, we'll get pulled down to the negative. So I often tell people, think about your glasses being half full instead of half empty, and changing your perspective about the reality of the situation can really help a lot. So those are a few of the things. And as we're doing those for ourselves, we can interact and talk with our friends and neighbors and encourage them to do the same thing.
Well, and that's a good lead into my next question, which is about the interactions that we have with our neighbors. I heard someone recently say that the worst thing to tell people is not to panic when it's a crisis. So I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe you can help it. What are some of the things that we should be talking with our neighbors about and saying? And what are some of the things that some good questions that we can be asking to help everybody stay safe?
Right. So I think because we all have different personalities and different strengths, some of us are more verbal than others. So as we're checking in with people saying, how are you feeling? How are you sleeping at night? What sort of things have you been talking about or thinking about or worried about? So giving the opportunity or for people to talk, and sometimes talking, just having a place to voice those concerns can go a long way. And then acknowledging those feelings, that whether people are feeling angry or frustrated or lonely or disappointed, acknowledging them so that people know, you know, that's really okay. That's a part of being human. And recognizing, you know, there might be some people that are really struggling more than others, and helping to problem solve about what specifically is not going well for them, and trying to see how you can help them out.
Okay. So before we open this up for questions from the participants, many of the people who are here tonight are officers and members of neighborhood organizations. And what I'd like to ask you, since you're involved in this, is, you know, what can our organizations be doing to help neighbors during this difficult time?
I guess I would say encourage people to foster relationships or check on each other. You know, hopefully we know each other as next door neighbors. Sometimes that happens, or sometimes it doesn't. But if you haven't had the opportunity, as you see your neighbor walking outside or the yard, you know, calling out and saying, hey, how are you doing? Or introduce yourself if you haven't met before. And just, I think, being present in the moment and interacting in these moments, even though those may not be the regular circles that we communicate in. And then just, again, checking on each other regularly to see if, you know, they're still interacting, so that they're just not isolated inside their house as we're all separated.
Okay. Well, let's open this up. What questions do you have for Dr. Williamson? Andy, I said.
Dr. Williamson, if you have someone that is, you know, doesn't have internet, doesn't have any way of talking to the neighbors except right there in your yard and everything, is there any way that we can get information to them so they can reach out to either a professional, or is there any way we can do that as a neighborhood?
So your question, I'm trying to understand. Your question is, if people don't have internet and they don't use their cell phones a lot, and the only time you see them is out in their yard, how
Right.
can we get them information? Okay.
Yeah, or how can we maybe help them?
Okay. Well, hopefully they have a telephone, or just a regular telephone, if not a cell phone, a house line, and getting their number and calling them. And it might be something that you do on a regular basis. So a couple times a week, or there's a rotation. And so we just, you know, having some conversation about who they are, sharing some stories about some of their things that they enjoy doing. Humor, I think, also goes a long way. So just as you were sharing we saw the YouTube video as the start of this meeting about the social distance dance. You know, people are being very creative in terms of sharing humorous stories. And if nothing else, you know, sharing a book, or sharing some things that you've read, a hard copy, putting it in their mailbox so they can take a read, you know, they can borrow it and read it. But I think we just have to be creative about how we connect with each other and be intentional.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Trish France from Caldwell Abbey Hall Neighborhood Association. I want to know how you feel about the terminology that we've been using, the narrative of social distancing versus physical distancing.
Oh, you are absolutely right. Social distancing is not the term we need to be using. We should be using physical distancing, because as we are physically distant, we need to be actually more socially connected in other ways. So I agree 100% that, but I know it's going to be hard to sort of reel that terminology in, because it's so ingrained over the last few weeks. But physical distancing is actually the term that we should be using.
I think perhaps as neighborhood leaders, that's something we can all do, is to further that narrative by using that terminology. in our communication and our any kind of interaction we have with our neighbors.
So I have a question.
Yes.
There are people who live together who did not get along well before now.
Right.
I mean, even in instances of abuse, you know,
Yes.
physical and emotional abuse. So could you speak to that?
Definitely. There are, and I'll try and find it here, there are some unfortunate circumstances. Well, let me just start with the mild. For example, as I mentioned before, many times when children who have been away at school are coming back home, college, you know, near graduate, or had their own apartments, but they had to come back home. It might be hard for some families to realize that the relationship is different. So this is not the same, you know, 12, 13, 16-year-old that was in your home, but they have advanced. So it takes some conscious effort to communicate and acknowledge where people are in their lives, including the adult children acknowledging that, you know, yes, you're back home, but you need to contribute in some way to the flow of the family. But with more serious things in terms of individuals that are dealing with abusive situations, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, we do want to make sure that people are safe. And there is a hotline, I'll try and see if I can find that, that was shared earlier. Let's see, yes, the YWCA Domestic Violence Hotline. And people don't even have to call that number, but they can text the number. And that number is 615-983-5170. There's also a Tennessee statewide crisis hotline for people who are just maybe experiencing more mental health issues in terms of feeling more depressed, really having anxiety episodes that they're not able to control, or even, you know, thoughts of suicide as they're just feeling overwhelmed. And that crisis number is 855-CRISIS or 274-7471. So those are two, I guess, important numbers so that people, even though they're at home, there are resources that we can help make sure that they're safe while they're at home. So thank you for that excellent question.
You're welcome.
I have a question if I'm on.
Hey, Erskine, tell us your question.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm a news junkie. And because of that, there are times when my stress level increases. I get, and I live by myself, but there are times when I get very upset with the fact that I'm watching this, and I get very upset with the people I'm looking at on the TV. And I suppose the simple response is stop watching TV. Are there other diversions? I've gotten back into the habit of reading, but I still sort of am drawn to the TV, MSNBC and CNN.
Right.
What do I do?
Okay. So one of the challenges we have is that this information is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't even have to look for it. It just pops up on our phone, pops up on our computers. And so, you know, I think you have a good question. What do you do with all this information, particularly when you like keeping up to date with it? And I think you have to remember that it's important to have a balance. And so we're not saying don't look at it at all, But if you miss it at 5 o'clock, chances are pretty good you'll see the story again at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, okay? Or even if you miss it in the evening, it will repeat the next morning, the next day. So having a routine, so establishing a time, this is the time, 7 a.m. or the morning news I'm gonna watch or the evening news. And then anytime you take something out of your schedule, you want to replace it. So if you're taking that, watching that news out at a specific time, replace it with a specific activity. So that novel that you're reading or that book that you're reading or this new hobby that you're doing, that's a specific time to do that. So you're not just shutting it off, but easily are more easily able to get back into that habit. You want to try and replace it consciously with something and try and stick to a schedule. And I know that that's easier for some of us than others, but I think that would work out well for you.
Thank you.
We have time.
And then another thing is you can develop an accountability partner. So have somebody check in on you, you know, that you have to report to. Okay, I watched the news during my time that it was supposed to be shut off. And you know, you play around with that and have somebody else encourage you to turn it off by being accountable to them.
We have time for one more question. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask?
Well, while they're thinking, I also want to just mention that I think it's important for people to know that even though we don't have all the answers, there will be an end to this. So this is not going to go on forever. And in the meantime, just focus on what can you do here and now during this time to be intentional and purposeful about your life. And then also think about how you can reach out to help other people. So call friends that you haven't talked to in a while, or call some of the older neighbors in your neighborhood, look out for them in particular, so that reaching out to others draws away your focus on yourself and in your anxiety. And then for many of us who have a belief in God, just know that He's in control and He's going to work it all out for us in His due time.
Yeah.
Jim, I just received a message from Tim Weeks, who's the president of our association. He's trying to ask a question, but he's not. No one hears him. So I asked him what was the question. He hasn't responded yet. As soon as he does,
Oh,
I'd like to ask the
hey,
question.
Tim, if you're on your phone, if you hit *6, we'll be able to hear you. I forgot to tell people that tonight. If you want to speak and you're on your phone, you hit * or *6.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Well, I can hear you. Hi, Tim.
Hey, glad to be here. This is really kind of a personal question. You know, I've seen this kind of as a joke that people have referred to the TV show that was on USA called Monk, about an investigator that was a germophobic.
Right,
you remember
right.
that show?
Right.
Well, I think all of us are turning into germaphobes. There's an anxiety level that the more you shelter, the more you fear going out. You know, occasionally you have to go out. But how do you deal with that specific type of anxiety that, oh my God, if someone walks 4 feet in front of me, you know, instead of 6 feet, you know, I want to get something.
Okay.
You know,
Wow.
you can do all the stuff like wear a mask, wear the gloves, use the hand sanitizer, but you're like, wow, you know, I could still slip up, you know. How do you deal with that kind of anxiety?
That's true. That's a good question. So asking how you deal with the anxiety about being afraid to go out when you've been in for so long. Well, the reality is while there's things that we're still learning about COVID-19 and the spread of it, is that, you know, contact or brief contact like that in terms of passing, if that happened, we all would have had it long ago. So just focusing on the facts and being aware that the measures that they're telling us in terms of wearing a mask and being physically distant from individuals, washing our hands on a regular basis, that is really appearing to make a big difference. And so a casual passerby that comes 4 feet instead of 6 feet away is not really the way how this is spread. So just being grounded in the facts and focusing on the fact that, you know, as we continue what we're doing now, that we should be able to be okay and things will flatten out eventually. Does that answer your question?
That was a very good answer.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. You just have to remind yourself of the facts.
Yes,
That's really
stick to the facts.
like
Don't let your mind race on, you know, into, you know, next month. Just stay here and now. These are the facts. This is what I need to do. This is what I've been doing. It's working well. And let me just continue my regular practice. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Since your specialty is child and adolescent psychiatry, can you give us a few pointers for those of us who have kids or have neighbors who are kids, how we can help them in this crisis?
Sure. So as much as they are living in this world, our children are aware that this is not our usual pattern. So they're aware that there's something serious going on. But as we're home together or as you interact as a family, these are opportunities for time to ask them questions and answer their questions. So what do you think about what's happening, or what do you understand is going on in our world? And what do you think about it? They know a lot more than we think they do because they listen to us and they do hear the news, even though they may not be intentionally doing that. They also pick up on our worry and anxiety. So practicing deep breathing when we're feeling stressed, learning how to calm down, and also teaching our children how to practice deep breathing. Modeling for them that it's appropriate to turn off the TV, to close our computers and do some other things so that they're not always on their electronic devices. Answering their questions truthfully, according to their developmental age. So younger children can understand that this is serious because we talk about serious things about, you know, not talking to strangers or what to do when the sirens go off, being in a safe place and when a tornado watch or warning is coming through. So we can talk to them about being safe, washing their hands, and why we're not going out in public, and that we don't want to make inappropriate promises that, you know, we'll never get sick, but that we're all doing the best we can. The doctors are doing the best they can to treat people that are in the hospital or they're getting sick, and that we're all going to do our best to be healthy. So just talking with them at their level and answering their questions, providing them with the same facts that we're providing for ourselves.
Dr. Williamson, thank you so much for being here. I know you're busy. If you have to go, that's fine. If you want to stick around for the rest, you're welcome to. But we really appreciate your time here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Well, since I'm here, I might stick around for a little bit so I can see what you all are talking about and how you share and how we support each other, right? Because this is what this is about.
So let us do, as the Hard of Hearing community does, let us give our appreciation to Dr. Williamson for all that he does. Thank you. All right. So we have about 20 minutes left, and this is our time together. And what I'd really like to do is open it up and invite each of you. It is an invite. It's not a requirement. Just to talk a little bit about what's going on in your world and specifically in your neighborhood. Now, I know we got 3 people from the Donaldson Hermitage Neighborhood Association here, but I think you live in different neighborhoods. So if you could be highly localized and just let us know what's going on and you know, if you're part of this, the tornado that went through and your neighborhood was impacted by that, would love to hear what's going on in your neighborhood that way too. And I'm not going to call out people. Is there someone that would like to talk with us?
I'll start. Hello, everyone. This is Wacy. I'm Eastwood Neighbors, and I'm one of my friends, neighbors, and new member to Eastwood Neighbors. We have been texting, and he is hilarious. And he's sending me these pictures so as to be safe. His name is Daniel. There he is.
Yeah, hey, I'm sorry. Well, no, I was gonna, yeah, I can speak up based on what I was texting Wacy about. She asked me how I was being positive. And part of it is like there's a ton of like businesses I see going under, but I also often see on the internet, they will give you an opportunity to kick a couple of bucks their way. And that feels great. Like my comic book shop, you know what? One of the impacts y'all probably haven't heard about is like the comic book distributor and publisher who does Marvel and DC and Image and IDW, and every comic book you've heard of has basically shut down for an indeterminate period. So all kinds of comic book shops everywhere are going to be impacted. So I kicked them a couple of dollars for a deal they're doing for when it starts back up. It's going to get me a discount later, but in the meantime, it floats them and gets them the cash flow they need. You know, done that in a few circumstances. I was also telling Wacy in terms of the question about how do you stay positive with the news. You know, I just let the news stoke a ball of white hot rage inside me, and I fan it by reading history in between, and I find that keeps me warm on cold nights.
And it's going to be cold tonight.
Thank you. What I want to just also add is that I'm a porch talker, and now I become a sidewalk talker. My neighbor and I, we sit in our each individual driveways, and we had wine last Friday. We're going to do it again tomorrow. And for some reason, there are more people in my neighborhood who are out now. I think it's almost a double number of people who are just out enjoying themselves. And I'm not standing either. I still get out and walk. I live in a very convenient neighborhood to grocery stores, and I'm safe when I do it, but you can't stay in. And I just want to add, I have to date myself when I say this, but when I was growing up, I was afraid of two things that I knew was going to get me one day, and that was the iron lung and the iron curtain. And my parents made sure I understood what they both meant. I'm talking about polio. And if you know anything about what polio was like, I had friends who had polio. I did not get it, but polio was as in epidemic proportions around the world. It was wiped out so many years ago. But the fear that it was generated within for children was something that is almost inexplicable. And I think that for children to be made aware, I think the answers that were given were excellent. Children need to be made aware that there's something going on that we need to protect ourselves from. And I think that providing children with fair information will go a long way. So when they are my age, they won't be as fearful as many people are today. I still have to be careful, but I don't fear something that I basically have a certain amount of control over, but then there's some things that none of us can control. So I think it's important that children are given as much real information as they possibly can hold for their age group.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Andy. I'm part of the Donaldson Harmonies Neighborhood Association. The other two are on here with me. I'm in the Donaldson area. I live right behind the Walgreens off McGavick. And I'm a full-time Uber driver, and so I've lost half of my salary, and I get up in the mornings, and before I start driving, I just say, okay, Lord, whatever you got planned for me today, just go ahead and send it to me, and I'll take it in just, you know, and each day he's been able to give me the money that I've needed to make so the bills keep getting paid. So that's all and then I try to get out and help the neighborhood and try to, you know, help people out in the neighborhood or help my friends out in the different areas that they live in.
Thanks, Auntie.
So this is Leslie, and what some of my neighbors and I have talked about is this really is our stone soup moment, where if you don't know your neighbors, it may be harder to do, but certainly we have an opportunity now to recognize needs and to be supportive of one another, and that has been very encouraging. The whole toilet paper crisis, which I'm still baffled by, has definitely spurred us to check on each other. Do you have toilet paper? That's like the question every day. So people are making sure that neighbors have toilet paper. I've never heard so many reports about toilet paper in all my life. Down to one roll, who has one? So I think we're doing good, but it has caused me to think as a neighborhood lead just how much more connected we need to be, because there are certainly going to still be people who fall through the cracks and people who don't know that there is a vibrant group of neighbors who are wanting to be there for those who aren't as connected and can help.
Hey, Leslie, I know you live over by Turnip Truck. You can tell your neighbors that they always have 4-packs for $1.99 right now, and I've not seen the shelf empty yet.
Good to know.
It's made from trees, Leslie.
Yeah, it's been interesting. My next door neighbor had to tell me about his inventory just the other day, and I was like, oh, all right, we got you if you need it.
Thanks, Leslie. Who's next? Name and where you're from, please.
Hey, this is
Hey,
Erskine.
this is Jordan Huffman from the Dawson Hermitage Neighborhood Association. I live over in the Villages of Riverwood off of Dawson Chapel Road. Pretty big neighborhood. We got about 800 homes in here. One thing that the neighborhood has started doing for the past couple of weeks is they've been bringing in a food truck every couple of days, and it's all through an app that actually you can order, go pick it up. They tell you when to come and pick it up. You're never around anybody, so it's all really, really safe. Really, really pretty cool. We've done it a few times already, and like they've got Five Daughters Bakery coming here in a couple of weeks. They got the rolling recipe coming. That place is awesome. They actually had Nashville chicken and waffles today, so really good selection. It's really boosted the morale of our neighborhood. If you're a part of a neighborhood association that has the means to do something like that or pull that together, it definitely will boost the morale and get people out, and it's nice to always see your neighbors.
I've got a question about how you connect with the food trucks.
Yeah, I will put the name of the website that is doing it in the chat here for everybody.
Thanks.
And then you can look into it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what a great idea. Erskine, I know you're ready to go.
Yeah, I'll go to the food truck right now, as a matter of fact. I was listening to NPR. I'm going back to the toilet paper issue. And there were some young, they were talking about a neighborhood that had I guess it's a good mixture of both seniors and younger folk who had children. And the children, a couple of the little girls in the neighborhood found out that one of their neighbors had a toilet tissue issues. They must have heard it in just conversations with their parents. They went and got some toilet tissue, about 2 rolls of toilet tissue from their parents' house, wrote a little note on the toilet tissue, took it over to the senior neighbor's house, knocked on the door, ran and hid, and waited till she came out. I thought that was precious.
That is precious.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good thing. I guess the thing over here in the College Hill neighborhood area is that we actually have a larger number of people out walking, and they're keeping, they're walking in single file, they're walking their dogs, and they have their kids with them. And when they're out, there's people are a lot more friendly than we had been. I don't think we've ever been unfriendly, but there is a very intentional effort on everyone's part to speak and say how you doing, good to see you out here, and all sorts of stuff. And just that's a good thing that's happening. That's a benefit of this house arrest that we're all under.
Yeah, that is.
Anyone else want to share what's going on in their world?
I will. This is Lois Lane
Hi, Lois.
in historic Edgefield.
Where's Superman?
We have some beautiful tulips that are a little past their prime today, but have been blooming. They've been blooming in our neighborhood, and some are at our entrance, and some are in my backyard, which you can't see from the street. So I posted a picture of the ones that are on 10th and Fatherland, and invited everybody to be sure to look at them. And so we had about 60 responses on our Facebook page. So it was interesting that everybody's responding to the spring flowers as something beautiful that's happening now in this difficult time. But I also sent text messages to a bunch of my friends and said if they wanted to see the tulips in my backyard to come down the alley and they could see them through the gate, or just to come in, because we usually don't keep our gate locked during the day. So many of them kind of wrapped on my back door. And so I had like through the door or across the backyard conversations, brief conversations with a bunch of people. But it was a great way to see some neighbors and to get to share something that I had that I thought they would enjoy.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
And this is Trish France again from Caldwell Abbey Hall.
Trish.
And neighbor to neighbor. Left that out last time, Jim. So, hey, our neighborhood is thinking about doing a parade. I would love some feedback if y'all have done it, or, something that works well. We're thinking we need a theme for our parade, and we just really want to get the cars out, get people out, and circle the neighborhood, and just let them know that we're thinking about them and praying for them, and just let them know that they're not alone. Like, our neighborhood is a mix of empty nesters and brand new families. So, because our homes are such that you can't have a large family. So people who are buying first-time home buyers are purchasing homes in our neighborhood, and then individuals like myself and my husband who are empty nesters. So we would love to do something like a parade. And I'm wondering if anybody has any feedback for that, or any suggestions.
A parade of cars?
Correct.
Don't use toilet paper to decorate the cars.
No, but did you see that family in Donaldson that purchased all that toilet paper and was giving it away? They were featured on the news yesterday, and the kids were donating it. People were pulling through sort of a drive-through area, and they were giving them free rolls of toilet paper.
It was at a coffee shop here in Donaldson. It's about a half a block I went up there. I didn't need any toilet paper, but I just went up there and said thank you to them and everything.
Yeah, it was very sweet.
They started in their neighborhood and decided to go over to the coffee shop and do it from there. And the owners of the coffee shop said, come on.
It's a great way to teach your kids to give back.
Yeah.
Trish, I don't know about the car parade. I had been thinking about reverse parades, and because there's so many people out walking in neighborhoods today, I've heard it from several of you, but I just think people are home, and so they're actually living in their neighborhoods right now, moving around, and encouraging people to decorate their front porch and allow people to walk around and view the front porch. I know Valerie's shaking her head because she likes table displays so much, but that's one way that people could do it on their own.
I love that idea. I love that. Anybody else? Ooh, it's a quiet night.
It is a quiet night. See, this.
Come on, people, don't be afraid.
It is wondering if anybody's doing rainbows on their porch or in their window. I've seen that on TV, I guess, on the news, that some neighborhoods are painting rainbows to post for people who are walking or driving by to see.
Ooh, that's another good one.
Our neighborhood is doing hearts. A lot of people have hearts for the healthcare workers on their doors or windows. A good majority of the houses in here actually do.
Yeah, having a small child, that's one of the things that they've been posting is like, do X in your window today, and then parents can walk kids around the neighborhood and see the shamrocks or the rainbows or whatever. You know, good excuse to get out.
And I've also seen where people are hiding teddy bears, and so the kids can be looking for the teddy bears on the porches or something like that as well. I've actually been doing a lot more walking. I have doubled my daily steps the last few weeks, and have been walking not only through my neighborhood, but through several other neighborhoods across town. And just some of the artwork that the kids are doing on the sidewalks, and what they're writing, the words that they're writing have been pretty darn amazing. And in addition to that, in East Nashville, Good Wood is selling signs that say Nashville Strong. Now, I don't know if this even works, but you can, yeah, I think it actually does work, right? Those little signs, which after you're done using it outside, you take the back off and you can take it inside your house. They also do little plaques as well. And the neat thing about this fundraiser they're doing is the small plaque costs $25 and they ship it to you. Half of that money they give away, and you get to choose where it goes. It can go to a nonprofit. It can go to a local business. If you know of somebody that's unemployed, you can give them that person's name and address, and they will send a check to them. I know someone did bought one for their home and made Neighbor to Neighbor a benefit. I wasn't so generous. I bought one, and then I gave my money to Marche, which is a restaurant that we eat at all the time in East Nashville. So I put on the chat room page the URL for that in case anybody else wants to see it. But I just thought those were really a good idea. Well, we're down to the last few minutes. Is there anybody else who would like to share something this evening? Oh, I just can't believe you guys are so quiet. Well, I don't want to drag this on.
That's what I want to say to Erskine. Erskine, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
You need to watch cartoons.
Oh no, they don't have good cartoons anymore.
You know that laughter is the best medicine. And it still is. Right now, I know in the midst of all this going on, and Jim will tell you this, I find something to laugh about every day. And it's not about this virus. It's about the fact that life is beautiful, and I'm here, and I have people who are here, and we're trying to make the best of a bad situation. And I'm still able to watch Andy Griffin every night. Yeah, nothing's going on in Mayberry. And I watch cartoons. And Betty Boop, she still rocks after 90 years. Betty Boop is still got it. So watch some cartoons, Erskine.
But Andy Griffith, like if in Mayberry, if COVID-19 came to Mayberry, that would be an incredible episode. Barney would lose his mind. He would try and shoot the virus. It would be incredible.
You just nip it in the bud. That's all you do. You nip it in the bud.
It works.
Now Barney.
Well, as we close out tonight, I do want to say a brief word about the U.S. Census. I want to say something about it tonight because this is important for all of us that are in this room. And sometimes we don't realize it. The U.S. Census is going on right now, and each person who completes doesn't complete the census in our community, every person, it's a $20,000 loss over a 5-year period to our community. So if you're going to want parks, if you want community centers, if you want strong schools, if you want better transportation, police protection, you name the issue. All of those federal dollars come to us by means of the U.S. Census. They determine how many people are in our community, and we're apportioned a certain percentage of that money. And so one of the things that I'm asking all of our neighborhood leaders to do, and on Monday we're going to start making some phone calls to many of you, is to really help us to get the word out to your neighbors today, to urge them to it takes 10 minutes. They can call or they can go online and take the census, and it's done and over with, and that brings vital funds to our community that we need for things like disaster preparedness. And so as you're going through it, I lost the page here. I had it out here a minute ago. Here it is. No, that's not it. Well, anyways, if you do a Google search for Take the 2020 Census, it'll give you the phone number and it will give you the URL. And if you haven't already done that, before you go to bed tonight, take 10 minutes and do that. So, well, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's great seeing so many of you. I'll look forward to see you in the near future. Valerie and I will be sitting down and talking about what the next leg of our journey will be. But thank you for being here. Stay safe and be well.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yes, Erskine.
Before you go, you mentioned the census. I worked for them a few years ago, and I am going to have our robocall and pass it and actually call each of our homes and ask them if they have completed their census form yet.
You know, I fully intended to ask you to talk about that. College Hill Neighborhood Association actually has an opt-in robocalling system that they use for contacting their neighbors. Erskine, can you take a minute and just explain how that works?
Sure. What we actually do is we use the robo system to alert our neighbors anytime there's a meeting. We can call the families we call all the families, and we do it individually, or we can call each member in the family if we want to, or we can call them as a group. But we have the ability to call one day and set another time that the call will go out again. The system we use allows us to capture information, all sorts of it. It's a great data collection system. It'll recognize a voicemail and leave a message after the beep. It will also reach all of our contacts. We can add to it at any point in time. But we can pre-program a message that we construct ourselves, or we can have there is a call-in number that they use, and we can use their system, but we try to personalize it ourselves. We have one person who actually does the calls, and people are accustomed to the voice, so when they hear it, they don't hang up automatically as if it were a scam or a survey or something of that nature. We do about we can make about 100 calls, and it costs us between $20 and $25 a month, something of that nature. There are a number of programs around. We use Call Post, but there are a number of others, and some of them are very good at saying they will not support any the political organizations or anyone campaigning, something of that nature. And that's one of the good things about the Call Post. They're pretty selective about people they allow to use, people and or groups they allow to use their program.
Okay, thank you, Erskine. All right, folks, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you very soon. I thank you for all that you do across Davidson County, good things that you do in your neighborhoods to make people safe and help them be healthier and happier. Have a good night, and you yourselves be safe and be well. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.